Nanami released a JJS in the most recent update that also released Naoya to the public and did a lot of reworking to Mechamaru. Interestingly enough, with new characters, he released with 4 base moves and a special. All of his base moves having a ton of variants on them too, which is way more than most new characters released with. Mechamaru released with 2, if I'm not misremembering. Nanami is one of the more unique characters design-wise, definitely up there with Naoya for how differently they play from other characters. He is also by far one of the most controversial characters, and if you look at any kind of discourse on him, you'll see some people saying he's really cool, some people saying he's interesting but needs polish, and then a lot of people saying he's one of the worst characters in the game and shaming Frost for making this. What I will say is that playing him felt like climbing a mountain. At the start, it felt awful, and I absolutely trashed on Nanami in the Discord, saying he felt like garbage to play. Then, as I got better at playing him and understood how his moveset works, yeah, he's actually really fun. It's not that I don't understand where the group who says he sucks is coming from though, he's definitely an odd character that plays nothing like the other existing characters in the game, and is both extremely technically difficult, as well as requiring some good thinking and knowledge to make the best of his kit. This video is not a guide to Nanami, though I will make that sometime in the future. Rather, it's an overview of his kit, my thoughts on every single move, and some observations as well as criticisms for the character as a whole. Without wasting any more time, let's go over all the moves. Starting with his R special, it is extremely important to his kit. Pressing R will bring up a bar on someone's head. Pressing R again at a certain time after that bar appears will then inflict ratio on the opponent. You can tell what this timing is because a white circle will move down the bar and you have to press it when it's on the red circle. Anyways, the ratio status does nothing on its own, but landing your moves on people who have ratio on them will modify them to have different, stronger effects. This R special has an average cooldown, and the ratio status lasts for 3.5 seconds before expiring. You can use R special in your own stun, but you can't use it in other people's stuns. For its first move, it's called Cleaving Whirlwind. The move moves you forward a far distance before doing a strike in front of you at the end. This strike ragdolls anyone hit for a short duration and deals 14 damage. The strike is blockable normally, but it isn't 360 block, so it can go behind someone's back. However, if used with ratio, the strike does 4 more damage, and if it gets blocked, it inflicts a debuff on the opponent that reduces their blocking angle for 6 seconds. His second move is Severance Kick, which has 2 variants, but no ratio variant. The normal version throws a very fast kick forward that acts like Naoya's 4th M1, in that it knocks the opponent away without ragdolling them. The kick's damage is blockable, but it'll still knock back even if the opponent blocks it. The other variant happens if you hold S, and it instead throws a kick behind you. This kick guard breaks, and also has a special trait in that if you hit someone who's dashing, it'll stun them. This variant is slower than the normal one though. There's also a special interaction with Blunt Cut, the third move, which I'll get to next. The third move is Blunt Cut. This move charges up before dashing forward and dealing damage to anyone in the path you dash through. You can charge it up to increase the damage and range on the move as well. Notably, the move does 0 stun, it's also blockable, but it does bypass ragdoll. If you use it on someone who has ratio on them, the move becomes unblockable, does more damage, and if blocked, inflicts a debuff that disables the opponent's ability to dash. Using Blunt Cut after landing the normal version of Severance Kick also makes it instant, essentially turning the move into a free 9 damage unless they immediately ragdoll cancel Severance Kick. Blunt Cut also has an aerial variant. The aerial simply stabs down and does a double hit. With ratio, this seems to do a bit more damage, but I can't confirm this. Notably though, if you use ratio in the middle of the attack so that it triggers on the second hit of the move, it'll make the target get flung really high into the air, which is interesting. Finally, you have the fourth move, which is Stabilize. This does a blockable stab forward after a short array in a very small area in front of you. This stab then puts both you and the person you hit into a stun. During the stun, you alone can either use Blunt Cut or Cleaving Whirlwind. You can also activate Ratio during this. The move hits Ragdoll, and it has a special trait where if you interrupt someone using this, it increases the stun time as well as the damage. Using this with Ratio makes the move Guard Break and also increases the stun time, as well as giving 4 extra damage if you hit someone who is blocking. The move notably has a ton of end lag on it if it is blocked though, way more than any of Nanami's other moves. Now that we've gone over the moves, let's talk about how good Nanami is in his kit in general. Nanami is interesting in that he's very reliant on his ratio technique for his neutral to be good at all. He also lacks true combos, and a lot of them are green. What he does get in exchange for this is some pretty decent pressure at close to mid-range, as well as a lot of his moves being very safe. Cleaving Whirlwind, Blunt Cut, and Severance Kick are all moves you can usually block after using, regardless of if someone blocks it or not. That lets him throw out moves with way more freedom than other characters get, though that doesn't stop them from being interrupted, which is a weakness for both 1 and 3, though much more notable on 3. Stabilize is the only move in his kit that isn't safe, but it's just a terrible neutral move all around that exists solely for combos, which we'll get to later. When it comes to what moves he tends to favor, Severance Kick and Blunt Cut are by far his best. Severance Kick is overall incredibly solid. It comes out incredibly quickly, and the backwards kick variant is great both as a wake-up tool to get some extra damage, or a mix-up guard break in neutral. It also knocks him away a short distance that you can easily follow up on with 1, 3, or a side dash or forward dash, so it keeps you in an advantageous position to just keep pelting your opponent with attacks. That, and Blunt Cut being instant after you use a move, lets you do some great green combos where you just keep pressure on the opponent and land a ton of M1s as a result. Blunt Cut, on the other hand, is a super solid mid-range option. If you mark someone with ratio, they can't block it, and while it's not that hard to dodge the move, it can still chip away at your opponent's HP relatively safely because of how the move doesn't stun you. Admittedly, you probably won't get the dash debuff on anybody who's decent at the game, since they'll know to just stop holding the F key when they see you using the move, but it's still a super versatile move. Because it makes you travel a good distance forward while still having very minimal end lag, it's also incredible for rush downing, since you're able to close a distance without putting yourself at too much risk. The aerial variant isn't too shabby either, and it's neat for combos too. Where Nanami's moves start to falter a bit are Cleaving Whirlwind and Stabilize. Cleaving Whirlwind in theory seems like a good move, and it's not necessarily useless, because it does help you advance towards the opponent while also being really tough to punish. However, it's still bad in neutral, which generally has to stem from the hitbox being god-awful. You can miss it even if you're in your opponent's face, and it's overall incredibly inconsistent to land, sort of like old Mechamaru's Boost On. It is a pretty good follow-up off of Stabilize, because the move is made for that purpose, but the bottom line is that it's not worth using ratio on it in neutral because of how finicky it is to land, and it struggles to establish itself as anything more than something you use after Stabilize, or a move that moves you forward because of those reasons. Stabilize, on the other hand, is a disgrace. Maybe that's a little bit harsh, but I stand by it. The move is completely useless for neutral, and that all stems from it being given a lot of weird restrictions that make zero sense when you pair them all together. It gets a bonus off interrupting attacks. Sounds cool, but you're really never going to be able to pull this off on purpose because it's sort of a slow move that will easily get interrupted and punished by an M1. It's also blockable, and it has a hitbox the size of a peanut. If it had hyper armor or something, then maybe you could justify the awful end lag on block, and the interruption bonus would be possible to get. Because it doesn't have hyper armor though, it can't do that. It can become a guard break, only if you use ratio, which then makes it predictable, and then makes it a free interrupt by the opponent's M1. That, and you're also wasting a ratio use on a close range move, when you could just use it on Blunt Cut, which is far better. There's legitimately no reason to use this outside of a combo, except for being told to by the prescript, and in that case I'd rather take the easy way out. What the move is good for is combos. It does hit ragdoll, so if someone gets ragdolled by you, you just slap them with 4, and then you press 1, and slap them with that for some free extra combo damage. That's all it amounts to though, and it makes the move very boring, and just overall really bad. Anyways, we haven't dug into Nanami's ranking in comparison to other characters. Personally, he's on the weaker side. A lot of this has to stem from the previously mentioned issues, but his ratio is also a huge problem. It has a long cooldown, and a debuff itself has a very short duration, yet he's incredibly reliant on it to do much of anything. Blunt Cut only gets good in neutral when you use ratio. Same with Cleaving Whirlwind, same with Stabilize if you want to use that move for some godforsaken reason. His damage values are also all based around that fact, meaning that his moves all do low damage because the developers expect you to always be doing ratio with them. If you don't do this, then he just does less damage than anyone else. There's also the fact that he lacks true combos at all, which makes him really inconsistent against characters like Yuji, who have counters for one, but it also makes him fall off extremely hard against better players who understand that his combos aren't true and how to get out of his pressure. Stabilizing the cleaving whirlwind? Yeah, that can get blocked. Blunt cut after severance kick theoretically can be followed up with a side dash M1, but it's not true either, and if your opponent predicts that, at best you lose out on damage your character is built around being able to achieve, and at worst you get punished. I don't want him to get true combos, to be fair. It would change his identity a lot and make him feel a lot more generic, but it's something to be mindful of, and I think for this sole reason of him being a non-combo heavy character, a lot of people are not going to like him. You have to be incredibly good at M1 trading, and in general just have a very strong grasp on the basic combat to make his lack of combos and focus on keeping up pressure a strength rather than a crippling weakness. He can sauce people up really well if you can maintain this pressure, but to do that in the first place takes way more effort than anyone else. Lots of effort for the exact same reward everyone else gets for way less. Properly timing ratio while also fighting your opponent forces you to sort of multitask, which is difficult to do for a lot of people. What I do want to reiterate though is that while I want a ton of buffs for sure, I do want these to not change his playstyle that much, or even necessarily make him easier to play. He's gonna be a character that people don't like using, and that's fine. Freestyle characters like Nanami, who focus heavily on neutral pressure, are a lot less consistent and more difficult to pilot than easy combo characters like Yuji or Hikari, who mostly revolve around having good neutral and solid combos that you can repeat until your opponent falls dead. I still like him in spite of that, and while I won't call Nanami a great character, he lacks a ton of polish and is absolutely underpowered, he's got great bones that could be built on to make something pretty refreshing. He gives a feeling that I haven't gotten from a JJS character in a while, and he rewards aggressive play in a way that I actually like. Again, I can bet that a good 70% of the people who watch this video will try Nanami, feel like garbage, and then drop him for good. And I don't blame you for that. But if you take the time to figure out his unique playstyle and master the R special, he can be really interesting to use. Not good, but interesting. And JJS is a casual game at the end of the day. Metamancers aren't gonna like him, but there will be people out there who do. Anyways, that's my overall thoughts on Nanami. He's not the greatest right now, but there's elements of something cool baked in, and I do want to see where that goes from here. If you enjoyed watching this video, make sure to subscribe, because it helps out a lot. I'm Noob Eternally, thanks for watching, and have a good day. Bye.